How did you come across the Facebook page or the YouTube channel for Valley Shush?
I have a picture of me at the London Ski Club, going under this sign, meet here for the London Ski Club ski school. I think I was maybe 8 or 9 years old, and skiing has been my life ever since. Um, I was a ski patrol. I was 22 years with the Tony Seiler, Dave Murray summer ski camps at Whistler. I was 45 years on Mount Seymour, basically rental manager, if nothing else. But I, for the last 30 years, have done what is my project, which is the Mount Seymour Ski Club, sorry, the Mount Seymour History Project.
Okay.
And in doing that, I'm a member of the International Historical Ski Association. I'm a member of the Canadian Ski Hall of Fame and Museum. I actually got volunteered onto the membership committee. So I was just in a meeting 2 days ago with Nancy Greenrain, who's also on the membership committee. And so this summer, Wayne Wong came and joined our reunion after many, many years. So I'm quite active in ski history in general. And as I said, the nice thing about YouTube is the it gives you the suggestions off to the side.
Right.
And so I got a lot of ski suggestions. And somehow it came up Valley Shush, and of course, going from grade 8 to the end of high school in Orangeville.
I was really excited about looking forward to talking today with your historical background is just going back, and I want to basically just talk about all the ski resorts that were in the Hockley Valley. And I just find that so fascinating that at one time, I was just counting on my list between Twin Hearts, Cedar Springs, Hockley Hills, Hockley Valley Winter Park, Eagles Nest, Montclair, Valley Shush, Loretto. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 ski resorts.
Yep.
That
Yes.
to me, it was just something that as I started this project, I never, really realized as a kid. But I was like, wow, what was that like back then to have that many little mom and pop ski areas so close together?
Yeah, I mean, that era is the era of the mom and pop ski area where, somebody could literally drive a truck up to take the wheel off and throw a couple of tire rims on a couple of telephone poles, drag a rope around it, and, say I got a ski area, I mean, we skied that probably first year we skied what is now Hockley Valley, when it was like, and I remember one of the videos, I think the one guy remembered it was like about 5 different rope tows that went from the very bottom all the way to, way back. And I just remember that, but of course, unfortunately, I have no photos or anything of it. And then it was part of the ODSS ski club. In fact, I was the president, I think, in my 11th grade, but that was before Hockley Valley, got the T-bar, the small T-bar.
Right.
And we used to, we had lots of kids join the ski club because you could get out of the last period of school and you would literally run down the hall, grab your ski equipment, throw it in the back of the school bus, change your boots on the school bus, and then we'd ski Valley Shush until it was just way too dark. There was no lights, right? And that was when the Pama, the detachable Pama lift ran.
Okay.
And we would ski Valley Shush until dark.
Well,
and then I think it was the next year, so that would have been grade 10, that Hockley opened for the first time with the small T-bar.
Okay. What was it like riding that Pama lift?
Oh, it was great, because the guy would hold on to the seat as you got on, and then you'd get this, you get airborne And of course, there was nobody there but the school kids, so it was all, follow me down this trail. I remember going off the jump. They had a hill. I don't know if it was an actual run, but it was a hill that had been groomed to be quite a nice jump. And I remember going off that one day when it was just super icy and just yard sailing, sliding down and probably having quite the abrasion on my hip or something.
So that wooden jump that they made, that's the jump you're referring to. It was actually there.
Yeah, it was sort of an in-ground jump. I'm pretty sure somebody had dug it out a little bit or piled a bit of dirt up, but it was sort of because back in those days there was just skiing. There wasn't cross-country jumping downhill. It was just skiing. Safety bindings had just come about. I mean, we were skiing, I'm pretty sure, on what I call Canadian Tire Speed Specials. Arlberg skis, Squaw Valley Mark III bindings. And either lace or the very early versions, made in Japan, buckle boots.
Okay, so what year would have been the first year you skied at Valley?
That probably been the winter of 67, 68.
Okay.
Oh, no, it would be 69, 70, because I don't think if we probably skied Hockley Valley when it was rope toes, because there wasn't a ski club at Elizabeth, Queen Elizabeth School. So it was probably the next year when I was in grade 9 that we skied Valley Shoosh.
Because if I understand right, the Palmolift was only there roughly 10 years from 1960 to 1970.
Yeah.
And then they put the T-bar in. So did you ski there when they replaced the Palmolift?
No, because once especially me and my dad, I've got 2 sisters, one on either side of me, an older and a younger. And my younger sister used to ski with me a fair amount, but it was mostly me and Dad. And I would say 69, by 70, we were probably skiing Mansfield on the weekend.
Okay. Yeah.
And then I was part of the Mansfield junior racing team, the Keeley League. If you remember, there was the Nancy Green League, but there was also the Keeley League, which you progressed to once you were, a teenager. And I was on the Keeley League, which would have been the winter of 71, 72. And then I think 73, I was on the Canadian Ski Patrol system for the first year.
Okay.
And that was the summer, 72 was the summer I came out to Whistler as a student to the Tony Seiler summer ski camp.
Oh, okay.
And in 73, I came back as basically a counselor, volunteer. I begged and pleaded for the job.
Well, I'm happy to, at least the last time I looked, Mansfield's still in business, so that's nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was that they had a beginner T-bar, and then they had a double T-bar up the main run. And of course, that was when there wasn't the grooming, and the 2 runs either side of it were just huge mogul fields. I mean, none of these hot dog moguls. I mean, they were like 10 feet high little mountains.
All right, well, here's what I'd like to do. Let's just run through this list here, and I just want to see what comes to your mind. But let's just start off. We talked a little bit about Valley Shoosh, but what other things? Obviously that's near and dear to my heart. What other things do you remember about that place, like the atmosphere, the people there? Did you? I mean, the cast of characters obviously was my father, who wasn't really around because we were living in the States by then. But Lloyd Edwards, do you remember Lloyd Edwards?
No, that's the thing is, I'm grade 9 plus 5, 14, 15. I mean, I'm a 16-year-old teenager,
right?
Who, as I say, is just trying to get enough runs on Valley Shoosh before it gets dark. I doubt whether we ever went in the lodge.
Okay.
It might not even been open, to be honest with you. And then um, the next year was as I say, Hockley Valley and the T-Bar, and they had lights on it. So yeah, that was probably more popping into the lodge and having a hot chocolate or something.
Yeah.
And then definitely lots of memories of Mansfield. But I mean, I can remember skiing Twin Hearth um, when it was super icy. I think the other places might have closed because it was just so icy. And I mean, me and my dad were the only people there. There might have been 5 or 6 other people, but literally the place was empty.
So you basically had it to yourself.
Yeah. And then I think I might have told you the story of Eagle's Nest is we literally, and that's the thing is because we lived in Orangeville, we could get to the Hockley Valley, even if it was, the highway to Collingwood was closed and the highway to Brampton was closed. We could still get into the Hockley Valley. And I remember one time, everybody was closed and we pulled into Eagle's Nest and the old guy in there said, well, go over, hit the switch, and the little Palma, I mean, it was all of what, 100 vertical, maybe, if you were lucky.
Mm-hmm.
He said, and just turn it off when you leave. And I think he took $2
Right.
or something like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, the one area which was north of the valley was the only one on the north side which they developed. I never skied it, but I did go there when they were using the caterpillars, the earth movers, and put a huge burn at the top of it.
You're talking about Montclair?
Yeah,
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 on the fourth line.
yeah, yeah. And I remember driving up there and going, "Holy God, who's building this? Did that actually open then?" I think I was going to college by that time, so it was just I was up on the weekends.
Yeah, Murray told me that they did open. They had a T-bar,
Yeah,
and the chalet was at the bottom of it.
bottom. Yeah, yeah,
So when you pulled off the fourth line there, and he was telling me that they did have to do a lot of excavating to excavate the road from the fourth line
yeah,
down to the chalet.
yeah,
He said people were always getting stuck trying to, get up the hill in the
yeah.
wintertime with snow and so forth.
And they moved all that dirt to the top and then basically created this, big flat area at the top, which was, again, my memory was like, 30 feet higher than the natural ground.
Right, right. Do you remember back to Valley Shows any of the other ski runs? Like if you got off the main lift back then, was it pretty much just following the main Palma lift back down, or was there
Yeah.
many trails you remember?
As far as I remember, there was one just main trail, sort of down the front, just sort of to the west of the Palma. And then there was another one which more a little bit around the back on the west of what I called the ski jump. And I think there was just those two.
Okay, yeah, that would have
You
been
know?
the Caribou. When you get off the lift, you would actually almost ski straight ahead. And,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then, okay, yep, and that to the skier's right, that would have been the Caribou. And then if you got off the Palma lift, the other main run that they had at the very beginning was skier's right would have been Murray's Run. That was
Yeah.
I think the
Yeah.
first, big, ski run, so to speak,
Yeah.
that they
Like I don't remember if they had real grooming in 68, 69, or whether it was just sort of, packed out by the skiers. As I say, I honestly don't remember going there on a weekend.
just
I skied Cedar Highlands. I don't know if it was a race with the Keeley League, representing Mansfield. I mean, I skied Caledon, I skied Devil's Glen.
Yeah, Devil's Glen is, I don't know if you saw, but I had a nice visit to Devil's Glen.
Oh, yes.
That was, man, what a beautiful place that is. And,
Oh, yeah.
and luckily they're still in business to this day, but,
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of history there, man, and a lot
Oh.
of touch points between Valley Shush and Hinterseers and the skis and ski lifts, you know, with
Yep.
oh gosh, yeah, there's just all kinds of touch points between the histories of those two places. So fascinating.
Yeah.
All right, so as far as Twin Horse then, that later changed to Aspen, there nothing really stood out to you too much there, just was it a T-bar or a rope tow when you were there?
It was a T-bar. It was this huge long T-bar with very little vertical.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I can remember literally shooshing down the hill and doing 360s just because it was so icy and just to entertain ourselves. I mean, I had one or two buddies from the ski club, and we might take them with us if they were free, and you just sort of watch Ski the Outer Limits or the Mobius Strip, and you saw some of the things they were doing. So we would do Royal Christie's and things like that. And then by what was it, 1971, I had my Wayne Wong poster on my bedroom wall.
Yeah. As far as Cedar Springs, Cedar Highlands, is there?
As I say, I can just remember going there one time. As I say, it could have been a race with the Keeley League or something. I don't know, but I remember. I think they had the two T-bars at the time because they were much more of a private club, rather than open to the public. So unless you got an invitation or something like that, there wasn't much to go on.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then back to whatever Hockley Hills or currently called Hockley Valley Resort. Did you end up doing much skiing there?
Well, as I say, that had probably been 3 years that we were part of the ODSS ski team or ski club. And I mean, we used to fill, 2 or 3 school buses. And once we moved over to Hockley, then there was night skiing. So number one, we didn't get off until 3:30, 4 o'clock, and then we'd go out there and I don't know if Valley Shoosh had rentals back in '69, but I know Hockley had rentals. So other kids, and we probably got ski lessons. I don't think they had ski lessons at Valley Shoosh. I think you sort of assumed that you either learned from your friends or something. But that would have probably been 3 winters, and we would ski every Wednesday or something like that. And then, as I say, on the weekends, I think that's when, especially 72 or 71, 72, because that's when I was with Mansfield, the Keeley League, and we would be up at Mansfield every weekend.
Okay.
I don't know if Dad joined the ski patrol before me. I think he did. So that's maybe why we went to Mansfield. And then the thing is that the Canadian Ski Patrol system, they couldn't get anybody to patrol Loretto. And so they basically said, okay, Mansfield, you have to send 4 people to Loretto every weekend. So we started, like once a month or, twice a winter, we would end up being assigned to Loretto. And we kind of liked it. And so the winter of 73, 74, me and Dad were the ski patrol at Loretto.
Okay.
And long story short, but I actually broke my leg at the summer camp at the end of the summer of 73. And I had a sort of a walking cast because it was a bad break. And so I had a piece of metal in my leg holding all the pieces together. And so I actually patrolled on one ski.
Did you really?
Yeah. Well, Loretto is all of 150 vertical, right? And I was a pretty good skier by then. So I actually had a cross-country ski boot on my injured leg because it was low enough that the ankle could flex, right? And I would just ski on one ski because, as I say, it was me and Dad. I mean, we trained some of the season pass holders to bring us the toboggan, like trained them how to ski with a toboggan, because if we were both at the accident scene,
Right.
you know. Anyway,
Well, that's
lots of
interesting. You're pretty talented skier skiing on one one
yeah,
leg.
yeah.
Well, I did have Loretto on my list. So was there anything besides your ski patrol days? Did you ever ski there at all, or just while you're doing ski patrol?
Um, Probably more just ski patrol.
Okay.
You know, I mean, and I don't know the years. It was I would think it was the early 70s. But every so often we would go up to up to Talisman, because if you went to Talisman, you could ski Talisman on their beginner T-bar. I think it was a beginner T-bar for free from 9 till 10. And then we'd go over to Old Smoky and get a much cheaper ticket and ski Old Smoky for the rest of the day.
Interesting. Yeah.
And I can remember we had one holiday with my two sisters. Mom never skied, but she would, on some of these holidays, like she would come up to Mansfield every so often and basically sit in the lodge and make sandwiches for lunch. But I can remember we went up, me and the two sisters, mom and dad, and stayed in one of the motels close to Talisman, and had a 3-day ski holiday up there.
Okay.
And we might have gone to like Blue Mountain, Georgian Peaks, once or twice a winter, if that.
Did you tend to spend, back during your high school and
Yeah.
days, stayed more in the Hockley Valleys, like Mansfield, that type area?
Oh yes. Oh, definitely.
Okay.
I mean, I might have skied Barrie once or twice in my whole life.
Yeah.
When we were in London, there was the London Ski Club, but there was also Ski High, which was this little pimple on the flat ground of somewhere near London. But I can remember going to Ski High once or twice. We might have come to Orangeville or Hockley Valley from London, but I don't think so. I think we basically just skied London, because I was still beginner, sort of.
Right.
In the late 60s.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think that we've covered all the places in the Hockley Valley. Is there anything else about your time in the Hockley Valley skiing there that stands out to you?
Like I went to college down in Toronto, Georgetown College, and almost every weekend would come home, and I think that's probably when we were patrolling at Loretto. So that would have been like the winter of 72, 73 or something like that. In fact, yes, it was, because I was doing physio on my foot at Vancouver or Toronto General or something like that. So yeah. And then I actually started a 5-year apprenticeship at the Stelco in Hamilton, and lived about 5 blocks from the little ski hill right in the city of Hamilton. So I would literally put on my boots and walk the 5 blocks and ski there, because I was a patroller at that time. So you could volunteer to patrol. But after about 3 years of the apprenticeship, I realized that the mountains were calling, and that's when using the contacts I'd made in the summer of 73 at the summer camp, that's when I came west to Vancouver. And as the saying goes, the rest is history.
Yeah. So with your,
you never know.
yeah, with your, love of skiing and being in the ski industry for all those years,
Yeah.
Like when you reflect back on like Hockley Valley, and then, just during that time of the 60s and 70s with all the mom and pop ski areas, was it the same way when you went out west? Was there a lot of small little ski areas out there?
Well, the thing is I mean, growing up in Orangeville was kind of neat because, again, as you said, 8 ski areas within, half an hour's drive, because so many people to ski was, to get in a car and drive for 2 hours up to Collingwood in a raging blizzard, you and go skiing. In BC, um, there is some driving, but in Vancouver, there's 3 ski areas that are literally within the city limits. And let's just say I grew up on Loretto, 200 vertical. I mean, these guys, 200 verticals, the rope tow hills, the chairlifts are 1,000 vertical. And I think the first year, which was a good snow year, the biggest thing I felt was that if you fell, right, you just rolled through the snow and got back up. I mean, you fall on Ontario ice, and you've got a good bruise for the next 2 weeks, right. Or you just slid all the way to the bottom of the hill. Right. I mean, I can remember going to Caledon Ski Club, and there was a guy, and the patrol had closed the run, and this guy was doing donuts with like a World War II track vehicle. And that was his way of grinding up the snow. And trying to get rid of the ice.
Right. That brings up something that I remember Murray telling me at Hockley Hills.
Yeah.
And with all the rope tows, do you remember Murray was saying that they had a configuration at one time where they were using an old Brendan gun carrier type. Do you remember seeing that?
I don't remember that, although, again, I'm the historian for Mount Seymour, and they used a Brendan gun carrier from the First World War to transport goods up the basically the hiking trail or the old logging road before the road or the highway was put in. So they're not the first person to come up with the idea of like a Brendan gun carrier was basically 2 tracks and a flat platform and an old, like a super old, 2 or 4 cylinder, motor, right. So it was pretty basic, and then you could do anything with it.
Yeah. No, I thought that was pretty fascinating when he told me that story. I was like, oh, wow. That's...
Yeah. And I mean, that was the early days of grooming, there was, if you got fresh snow, somebody might roll a culvert with some rocks or water in it down the hill, but that was about it.
Yeah. So do you, as far as the historical part of, the mom and pop era, what do you think was the biggest cause of those going away?
It's a good question. Having lived it, okay, one day at Hockley, and it must have been a weekend. I don't think it was the school. So obviously I maybe did ski there on the weekends once or twice, but a T-bar tower up the top, just before you got to the top, actually broke and fell down, and it was sort of like, okay, well, then we're just going to have to hike, and so people started hiking up the hill, and sure enough, within about 3 hours, they had got up there. They'd pulled the tower back up. The weld had obviously broken or something. Welded it back up, pulled the cable back on, and restarted the lift. But I can remember a couple of times. And the other thing is the season, like Loretto was the only reason why you ski Loretto was you're either a season's pass holder, right? Or your friend was. You wouldn't go to Loretto, for a ski day, from Toronto,
Hmm.
right? So the ski clubs and memberships, etc., was huge. I mean, where the Mount Seymour Ski Club, where I worked for 45 years, it was the ski club that got it turned into a park. It was the ski club that petitioned to, have somebody, build a chairlift, etc. And back then, when they built the chairlift in 1960, it wasn't to ski laps. It was to get higher up on the hill so that you could hike higher. It was like the Whistler in the old. Have you ever skied Whistler?
No.
Yeah. So in the old days, you would ride the T-bar up to the highest point, and then you would hike to the peak.
Oh, wow.
And everybody did that. That's just what you did, is you hiked higher, you know.
Interesting.
Um, and so if you talk to a lot of the early people, clubs, hiking, whereas probably by the 80s, it was sort of like laps on a chairlift, laps on a T-bar, and, maybe not as many seasons pass, maybe people going, one resort to, but my sister might, because of course, when she started at Blue Mountain, it was a family ski area. The Weissels, I'm not absolutely 100% remembering the name there, but it was a big organization, right? But Interwest hadn't bought them yet, you know.
Do you think it has anything to do with just the evolution of the sport to where,
Oh yeah,
obviously, skiing has been around for many years, but
yeah,
the small ski resorts of the Hockley Valley back in that time frame, there wasn't as many accomplished skiers, or there was a lot more people wanting to get into the sport to where, 100 or 200 or 300-foot vertical was
yeah.
just fine for them. But today, that would be just absolutely boring.
Oh,
That nobody would, if you could go back in time and put all those places back in business today, you
yeah.
still wouldn't have anybody want to ski there, just because there's no, vertical drop or challenge.
It's interesting, because of my interest. For instance, in not Michigan, Minnesota, um, in the city, there's a little, 150-foot ski area that actually put rope tows back in, because rope tows for experienced skiers and snowboarders is actually a much faster lift than a chairlift or a T-bar. If you put a rope tow on a race hill, you can put an awful lot, and they'll just do laps round, round, round. And they're doing quite well. So there is still these little ski areas, but I'm sure, as you know, I mean, Michigan, Vermont, Colorado, I mean, there's all sorts of books out there. The lost ski areas
Mm-hmm.
of Vermont, the lost ski areas of New Hampshire.
Yeah.
And you are very right. There are so many out there that were family owned, you know, and I mean, definitely the insurance of the late 70s, killed skiing. It was only snowboarding that really opened it back up again.
It's interesting. So you think snowboarding kind of
Oh,
revitalized as far as the business part of it, the money part of it?
you know, uh, just before snowboarding was invented, the major job of a ski patroller was not, repairing legs and stopping bleeding. It was chasing kids off ski hills with shovels, making jumps. Right? You weren't allowed to jump. You weren't allowed to do this. You weren't allowed to do that. Right? You couldn't have fun.
Hmm.
And I mean, I mean, I can remember taking the snow off the driveway on Elizabeth Street, running it through the carport into the backyard, and I made a 10-foot hill on our 5-foot hill in the backyard and one little jump just so I could practice my spread eagles and my 360s. That's how crazy I was about skiing. And I still get excited when I see some kid, whether it be here in Edmonton on a 10-foot hill on his snowboard or his Canadian Tire plastic snowboard, just trying something,
Right.
because that's what skiing's about. There's all the racing, fancy stuff, but what skiing about is saying to your friend, "Hey, I just read in the skiing magazine that Wayne Wong did a flip on skis." And I actually at the summer camp in '72, I've got a picture of it when I went out there to race, right? And when I got there, the recreational program taught lessons. They actually called it hot dogging lessons. And so I switched from racing to hot dogging, and the rest is history.
Right. What do you think about the trend of all these skiers being bought up by these like Vail Resorts and
Yeah.
all these other big, whatever you want to call them, that own, many, many, many ski resorts? Do you think that's good for the industry?
When I was in the industry, I read, Sam Magazine, Ski Area Management,
Mhm.
and things like that. I mean, there are books out there of people that really feel very vehemently about the big corporation. Um, uh, Mount Seymour is still a family-owned ski area, although it does circulate. The old joke: if you want to make a small fortune in the ski business, you better start with a large one. Um,
Yeah,
uh,
very true.
yeah, but they're still family-owned. The Wood family and their son, who's now like 55 or 60, he still is the manager, and you can still walk down the hall and say, "Hi, Eddie. I'm in a real pickle. I need to spend $5,000. I need to go and buy 60 more skis for my rental shop." And he would stand there and go, "Yeah, okay." you know,
Yeah.
you can't do that with Vail. you know, and that's something to be said for the little ski areas.
What do you think the biggest challenge is for the small ski areas?
Well, like this winter, they lost all of Christmas, right? I don't know if you've been watching the news, but literally there was no snow in Vancouver until January the 4th or something like that. They don't have snowmaking yet
Okay.
because in Vancouver, it's either raining or snowing. It's one of the same. In other words, you can't use snowmaking because it's not cold. Why did all the other than Hockley, all 8 areas close in the Hockley? With these small guys, all you need is 1 or 2 bad winters in a row, and you're flat broke.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, I can remember sitting in Eddie's office, and I'm sure this has been repeated in other family ski areas, and that is, do you try and run a really respectable business with good managers and culture, etc., or do you fire everybody April 1st and then hire whoever you can November 15th?
Mhm.
And just pray that you get somebody who can run a ski school and run a rentals, etc. you
Yeah.
know
I have noticed for some of the family-owned ski resorts that I still like following that
yeah.
the ones that have been successful, have been able to maintain their staff, all year.
Yeah.
So I think that plays a huge role in the success, of the resort, just the continuity of having that
Oh.
experience, not only on the, the maintenance side for maintaining all
Yeah.
the ski lifts and the snowmaking, all
Yeah.
the ins and outs of what happens, keeping that continuity, is huge. And,
Yeah.
does it cost more money? It does, but I think in the long run, because of the skill set and their knowledge that they have, the knowledge base,
Yeah.
in the long run, it pays off.
Yeah. And even, and I'm sure, as I say, it works in Ontario, works in northern Michigan. But like when I started in '75 at Mount Seymour, it was still the era where you might start on the chairlift, right? And then when you're leaving at 5 o'clock, the boss would say, Alex, we got 1,000 kids showing up tomorrow. We got to set up 1,000 pair of rentals with boots, etc. Can you work an extra 4 hours in the rentals? And can you be here at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning to help hand out the skis?
Mhm.
And then we'll send you back over to the chairlift afterwards. In other words, I had my level 2 ski instructors. I was certified in Solomon bindings, which, just as safety was happening with, I mean, to me, I grew up in a wonderful era because, as I say, I could remember Canadian Tire Speed Special skis, and then I could remember bindings and sort of the evolution of bindings when, there was like 30 types of bindings in the world. There was all the plate bindings, and then by the 80s, there was only like maybe 7 binding companies throughout the world
Mm.
because all the plate bindings had disappeared and DIN standards had come in. And of course, I mean, even a chairlift was simple. There was a wire that went up, and if the cable fell off, it cut the wire. And nowadays you have to be a computer wizard to be able to fix and run a chairlift.
Yeah.
But back in those days, it was a diesel engine and a couple of wheels and a cable, and go round and round.
Yeah. Yeah. That's for sure. Well, with that being said, what do you think the future of the industry is? Do you think it's in good health going forward? Or what's your biggest concerns about the future of the ski business?
Oh, the expense.
Mhm.
But that's the whole world is expensive nowadays. I mean, Edmonton has 4 ski areas, 3 of them within the city. They're all 150 vertical, or 200 vertical at the most. You got to drive 4 hours to get to Marmot, 6 hours to get to Banff if you want to do some real skiing. And yet there seems to be quite a good community here of skiers and snowboarders. It's interesting, the Canadian Ski Hall of Fame and Museum. They want to try and keep going, but you sort of go like, why is everybody else not interested in ski history? Sort of idea. So we're trying to think of that. I mean, definitely Vail, and because there's other things about Vail, has changed the whole idea of a season's pass.
Mhm.
And sort of going to other resorts. And in the last, well, since COVID hit, you get these horror pictures of like lineups a mile long waiting for the chairlift, and I'm sure you've seen that on Facebook at Whistler this last weekend, or over Christmas there, lineups all the way out to the road. So it's, I mean, skiing is going to continue. it's too big to stop. The other thing is, um, I used to go to Vegas every year to the SIA ski show in February. And I remember, like, we had an industry ski show in Calgary, and it was the size of 2 or 3 high school gymnasiums. And I thought that was huge. And we went to SIA down in Vegas, 75, probably 1979, the first time. And have you ever been to Vegas to the big shows down there at the Trade and Convention Center?
I have been to Vegas, but I haven't been to a trade center, no.
Yeah, but if you ever, it's just any trade show, sneak in, tell them you own a bicycle. Anyway, I was just amazed. I mean, this thing is like 15 football fields wide, right? And it took you 4 days to walk around the whole thing. And I remember saying how amazed I was. The guy goes, "This is nothing. You should see the bike show, the consumer electronics show that's going on right now. The ski business is tiny, tiny compared to other businesses, you know."
Yeah.
And so because we're in it, we think it's pretty amazing, and things like that. And there's all these ski areas, and there's Vail and all the other organizations. But in the big scheme of things, the ski business really is quite tiny.
Yeah. Do you think that between the private and the big conglomerates that they can coexist, or do you think the big guy is gonna end up pinching out the small guy, or are people gonna not like the big resorts experience because they're so crowded and not having a personal experience, that they're going to start gravitating back towards the more family owned private resorts?
It'll be interesting if you ever have some time, subscribe or follow it on, get the newsletter. But the Peak newspaper at Whistler, have you ever read that?
No.
Peak, PIQUE. That's the weekly newspaper at Whistler, and you can get it electronically. And Max has written the last page for the past 15 years, and he writes an awful lot about the challenges of Vail now that they own Whistler, and how it's lost the heart and soul of Whistler, and I would say that might give you some indication, because like when I started in 72 there, you had CBC radio, you had no TV, the newspapers were a day late. You would get Friday's newspaper on Saturday. There was no grocery store. If a kid injured himself, you either threw him in the back of the station wagon and took him up to Pemberton or down to Squamish, but there was not a doctor in the whole town, etc. And back then, you knew everybody in the valley. I can remember the first year we were at the village when they built the village at Whistler, and everybody knew the kids from summer camp because we were their only customers. There was nobody else in the village, buying things.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was when the heart was in Whistler.
Yeah. Well, that's the reason I asked you that question is, as I've been getting into this research project, the thing that kind of concerns me is it seems like, with the price point of skiing and the cost of skiing, right? The big resorts have figured out a way with their season passes and being able to ski at multiple ski resorts, which I think is great, because I think skiing is a very expensive hobby, especially for somebody new to want to get into, especially if they live on the East Coast trying to get out west to ski. Yeah. But the thing that concerns me is I'm hearing the personal satisfaction part is going down,
Yeah.
it's like you're a number, there's
Yep.
no heart and soul anymore of that experience of going to a ski area, and you feel like you're in a busy shopping mall and you're
Yep.
competing with so many people, and it's turning more into an unpleasant experience as opposed to a pleasant experience.
Definitely. If like, and apologies, but it's just what my knowledge is. But like Mount Seymour um, is thriving. Like they had a really good year last year. And one of the reasons is they now have a 4-hour window. So you have to pre-book. Seasons pass, people on weekends have to book. Monday to Friday, they just show up. But you actually have to book your time. And because of electronics and computers, it all works. But the nice thing is it guarantees you a parking spot, right? And for 4 hours with high-speed lifts, 95% of the population have skied their legs out. And because it's a local ski area, literally within city limits, it works. I mean, who wants to drive to Whistler and stand in an hour and a half lineup just to get onto the hill? I mean, last week people were starting to line up at 6 o'clock in the morning, so that wasn't the case, and there was still like a 10-minute lineup at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
And so I think there's always going to be room for the little ski area. I think there'll always be ski areas in Michigan, in Southern Ontario. Um, I mean, I have no idea how Caledon Ski Club, Hockley Hills, Mansfield are doing, right? But I would hope that they're doing okay. I know that the school programs, which is the feeder, right? I mean, Mount Seymour, when I started, had 3,000 rentals, and we used to literally do 3,000 lessons a day.
Wow.
And that fed, the season's pass memberships 10 years later.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And actually, they're asking, the Whistler Museum is April 8th. I'm going to do a presentation on sort of the history of Mount Seymour and Whistler, because if you skied Whistler in the 80s and you struck a conversation with your person, because it was always double chairs, it wasn't quads, and said, where did you learn to ski? They say, oh, the Goldie Rope Tour on Mount Seymour. In other words, if you'd done a survey in 1982 of the skiers at Whistler, you might have 10% tourists, 90% local, and of those locals, probably 60% of them were from Mount Seymour. They'd learned on Mount Seymour and were good skiers, and they had a bit of money. They got up, they bought a lot in Whistler. They built a log cabin, a ski chalet, and we're now coming up every weekend, because you could do that back then. You could buy property in Whistler in the early 80s for the money in your wallet.
Which I'm sure it's a lot different today.
Oh,
In conversation with you, the last question I have for you, is there anything about the Hockley Valley that I didn't ask you that you think's important, or any leads for me to continue my journey here of trying to capture as much history about the Hockley Valley skiing areas?
I don't think so, but like a lot of my projects over the years, this has been a fantastic hour. I really appreciate what you're doing for the history. And sort of as the days, years, months go by, if I hear something, see a connection, somehow, go visit my sisters and hear of an old friend that was part of the ski team or whatever. as the old saying goes, you'll be the first to hear.
Sounds great. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I'll keep in touch.
Yeah, we'll keep in touch. Good to
Okay.
meet you, Harold.
Yeah, nice to meet you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.